Chapter 43. Before the Pit. Libnah took the lead. She took the group towards the north across the island, heading first towards the coast. They passed through a sparsely populated forest to get there. Although the trees were scattered, the undergrowth proved to be quite thick. It offered some modicum of cover from the hordes of dead pursuing the king's army. Raeve couldn't help himself. Every few minutes he would glance worriedly over his shoulder in case there was any sign of pursuit. The army of the dead wasn't following them. The dead didn't even seem to notice they were there. Of the three harpies, it was Tanegi who seemed to be suffering the most from the walk across the island. Raeve had spent the first 6 years or so of his life walking everywhere he went, not even realising that he was supposed to have wings. He would still tire faster than any human, but he could walk further than most of his race. Libnah didn't seem to mind the walk either. Raeve could only begin to guess at the reasons why. Then there was Tanegi. "I'm getting very tired. Can't we stop for a rest somewhere?" Tanegi asked. "Shush," Libnah hissed as quietly as she could manage. "We don't want to attract the attention of the dead." "Come on, girl," Raeve said. "It's not that much further." "Why won't you let me fly?" Tanegi begged. "We daren't risk it," Libnah replied. "Just walk. You'll be fine." Libnah let out a sigh of complaint and pressed on after the leader. Having a worse time of it than even Tanegi was Mangloss. The old mage would have to proceed every step he took with his staff, checking the ground ahead was stable, and then using it as a crutch to support his weight as he took each step. "Can I help?" Jenny offered. "Thank you, my dear," Mangloss commented gratefully. "But a queen shouldn't. I can't stand by and watch my old friend and mentor struggle this way. Come, use me as your crutch," Jenny said. Despite her own pain walking, Tanegi couldn't help but comment, "He's the most amazing mage that humanity has left to offer, and he's a decrepit old man. I hope he's up to it." "Me too," Raeve replied sadly. Jenny would brook no further argument from the mage. She put his arm around her shoulder and her arm around his, and helped to support him through the rest of the forest. "Need a hand?" Raeve asked as he approached the two, feeling that he should also be helping. "No need," Mangloss protested. "Really?" "Take his other side," Jenny requested. So it was that Raeve and Jenny together helped the old mage through the forest towards the island's coast. Libnah was the first to reach the coast. She stood there waiting on the sandy beach for the others to catch up with her. From this vantage point the harbour walls of First Town were quite visible, as were the myriad of ships that had weighed anchor between the mainland and the island. Libnah wasn't alone for long. The 6 of them were soon gathered on the beach. Raeve and Jenny let go of the old mage in order to let him rest. Meanwhile Tanegi made herself as comfortable as she could on the sand, lying down on it and closing her eyes against the hot sun. "I think my feet want to drop off," Tanegi said painfully. "We'll give it 5 minutes," Libnah commented. "Then we'd better press on." "What?" Anita asked. "We're breaking for 5 minutes," Jenny translated. "Oh," Anita nodded. "Fair enough." 5 minutes, Tanegi muttered unhappily. "I think I'll die." While he had been helping the old mage, Raeve hadn't been able to glance over his shoulder and check out the progress of the army of the dead. He did so now. If any of the dead had followed them, though, they were nowhere in sight. The forest looked totally clear. Libnah, in the meantime, seemed to be trying to strike up a conversation with Mangloss. "Mangloss," she asked, her voice almost cooing as she spoke, "you're this very powerful mage. Do you not have any magic that will make it easier for you to walk?" "There is no real cure for old age," the mage replied. "I do know of a spell that will make me younger for a short while, an hour, maybe 2. "Then use it, dear," Libnah suggested. "If we try to sneak through the elven lines carrying someone, then we aren't likely to get very far." "You don't understand," Mangloss said. "Yes, I know a suitable spell. For a short while I'll be able to act as young and vital as if I was 20 again. However, as with all magic of this kind, there is a rebound effect. When the spell wears off, I will effectively lose something like 5 years of my life for an equivalent amount of time, and at least 1 year permanently. I'm not sure my body can take it." "I understand," Libnah replied sympathetically. "I will use it if it's deemed necessary," Mangloss agreed. Then sternly he added, "But only if necessary. Let's at least reach the edge of the pit first." "Okay, sweetheart, don't lay an egg. I was just asking," Libnah commented. "Maybe it's time we pressed on." Tanegi climbed painfully to her feet. She staggered over to Raeve and looked at him straight in the eye. "Let me carry the mage for a short while, boss." "I'll carry her," Raeve said. "You're having enough trouble carrying yourself." "I am," Tanegi agreed. "Nevertheless, I'd like to remind you that you are our chief. You shouldn't be performing such a menial task." "Jenny here is the Queen of Floreth," Raeve replied. She and I are Mangloss's students. We are a couple of our oldest friends. It falls to us to help her as much as we can. Besides, in your current state, I'm scared you'll drop her." "As you say, boss," Tanegi agreed and stepped back. "Come here," Race insisted, though actually he took a step forward and approached Tanegi. Race then rested his hands lightly on the shoulders of his bodyguard. "What are you doing, boss?" Tanegi asked. "Easing your pain," Race replied. He poured energy through his hands, through his very being, and concentrated on easing the pain that had so crippled Tanegi on the first leg of their journey. "Thank you," Tanegi said happily. "I feel much better now. I'm ready to tackle the next part of our mission." "Don't overdo it," Race warned. His own feet were now throbbing a little with the tiredness he had taken from his bodyguard. For Race, though, such tiredness was hardly crippling. "Okay," Libnah called. It seems she no longer worried about being overheard. "Let's get a move on." It wasn't that far back to the edge of the pit. The forest they had passed through to reach the coast seemed to line the entire south of the island. It kept them hidden from whatever might be gathering to the north, but it also prevented them from seeing anything that might be there. The forest eventually ran out of trees about a furlong and a half from the edge of the pit. Libnah, leading the way, suddenly indicated that the group should stop and find cover. Then she moved slowly, inch by inch, towards the very last tree, and by using it and the undergrowth as cover, she peered at what lay beyond. Race set his half of Mangloss down gently, and then he too snuck slowly forward. It didn't take him long to reach Libnah. "What is it?" It was a wasted question. He could see for himself what was happening. King Goat had been right in his assumption that the elves would take full advantage of the attack by the army of the dead to deploy their troops back at the rim of the pit. They were preparing traps for the king's horsemen. They were bringing up archers to cut down the king's army before it got close enough. At least they had no real air support as of yet. Their harpies were still under vicious attack by those loyal to the king. Some of the elves seemed to be so close to Race that he felt he could almost reach out and touch them. In the skies towards the back of the pit, the battle between the two factions of harpies was still going strong. By the look of it, the king's harpies had been able to bring down no fewer than 6 of the wyverns, but there were still many others up there. "We should head back," Jenny suggested. Race hadn't realised she had followed him, but she was standing right behind him. "We'll never get past them, and we need to warn my husband." "We need to press on," Libnah replied, sounding a little cold. "I'm sure your husband can handle them." Then she looked over her shoulder at Mangloss. "If we're going to get any closer, though, it's time for us to use a little magic." "King Goatee knows the sort of things the elves are likely to do," Race told his sister comfortingly. "I'm sure he'll be more cautious before charging in blindly again." Jenny nodded her head doubtfully. "I hope you're right. I've already lost Greyforth this day. I don't want to lose my husband as well." "We 6 are in more danger than your husband," Libnah commented. "Come on." Libnah scuttled back to where Mangloss was waiting. He was using his staff as a support and resting lightly against it. "It's time, isn't it?" Mangloss said wearily. "It is," Libnah said. "We need your magic. We need you to change the colour of the skirts we are wearing to black. We're going to need small insignia on them." She showed him one of the armbands. "This insignia, repeated here on the skirt." She pointed to the relevant area of her own skirt. "These symbols," Mangloss said to the harpy. "The same symbols as appear on each of our armbands," Libnah replied. "Don't mix them." Mangloss nodded. "The colour is easy, although the rest might be a little more awkward. I'll see what I can do." Mangloss set to work immediately. He grabbed the hem of Libnah's skirt, and Race could see the gentle blue glow flowing through the arms of his old mentor as he focused on making the garment a totally different colour. It didn't take long. Soon Libnah was standing before them in a pure black skirt. Not even the smallest trace of the old pattern seemed to shine through. As of yet, there was no insignia. The next part took a little longer. Mangloss had to stare intently at the armband that Libnah was planning to wear. Then he placed a hand gently against her skirt at the point where the insignia was supposed to be. "Hey," Libnah commented, "mind where you put those hands?" "Please," Mangloss grumbled. "I'm trying to concentrate." "Sorry," Libnah replied. Soon the 3 harpies were standing around in what were effectively new uniforms. Race slipped the armband over his arm and couldn't help but wish there was a mirror nearby in which he could check himself out. Still, if what Libnah and Tanegi were wearing was anything to go by, he was probably looking very authentic. Race was in the uniform of an elderman, Libnah a dragonman, and Tanegi was a drake man. "Good," Libnah said. "Now we need to fix Jenny and her friend." Mangloss nodded and then suggested, "And of course myself." "If you wish to come with us," Libnah replied. "Once you've done this small task, you could just stay here and rest until we return." "Not if you need my magic to do with what you find there," Mangloss insisted. We have a goddess on our side, Libnah counted. We can manage. Race is not a goddess, Mangloss remarked. Libnah sighed. Very well, don't lay an egg. But if you are coming with us, you're going to have to make yourself younger. Mangloss coughed and then nodded his head slowly. He seemed quite reluctant, and Race couldn't blame him. If he cast that spell, there was a good chance that the mage's life expectancy would be shortened to less than 2 hours. Mangloss seemed to be standing totally still, but Race could see the power being gathered towards him. It was a lot of power. It seemed to flood into him, encasing the mage in a sphere of blue light. Then Mangloss slowly raised his staff above his head. The magic centered on the staff seemed to suddenly explode in a rush of glorious blue light. A moment later, a young, black-haired, clean-shaven man was standing in the place where Mangloss had been. Whoever he was, he didn't look even remotely similar to the old man Race had grown up with. Although Race thought he had seen the staff explode in the casting of the spell, this new Mangloss was still holding it in his hands, and it was in one piece. I feel great, Mangloss said. I feel as if I have a new lease on life. I'm ready to take on the world. I guess I didn't need to come after all, Jenny muttered. I could have stayed with my husband. You were very helpful in getting me here, Mangloss replied keenly. Even his voice no longer sounded like that of an old man. And if I do survive when the spell runs out, I might need your help to get home. We should make the most of it while we can, Libnah said. You, Jenny and Thingy. Anita growled. Sorry, sweetie, Libnah commented. Don't lay an egg. Yes, I know. Anita sounded a little grumpy. Anyway, Libnah continued, the 3 of you need to take on a form of anything other than human. An elf, a goblin, a minotaur, or whatever. I would suggest that we already have 3 harpies. You probably shouldn't become harpies too. Besides, none of you can actually fly, and that would be a bit of a giveaway, Libnah suggested. What do you fancy, Jenny? Mangloss said. He approached Jenny at what for him was now an easy pace. He reached out his staff and rested it lightly on the Queen's shoulders. How about an elf? Nothing happened. Mangloss looked at the end of his staff, a slightly puzzled look on his face. It didn't work. You should have warned me, Jenny laughed. She slipped her wedding ring off her finger. Try it now. Once again, Mangloss tapped Jenny lightly on the shoulder with his staff. This time the effect was immediate. Jenny was still standing there in the clothing she had worn that morning, but her features now had a definite elven quality about them. Jenny slipped the ring back on her finger. I wish I had a mirror. I thought you had to use the rings and other trinkets for this sort of thing, Race commented. Rings are for when you want to hold a form for a long time, Mangloss explained. The spell will run out after about an hour, but hopefully we'll be done by then. I see, Race commented. Mangloss didn't hang about. He moved close to Anita. What do you fancy? Make her an elf too, Jenny suggested. As you wish, my queen, Mangloss agreed. You know, Libnah was saying, it's a good thing we're going in as members of Rave's Raiders. A normal elf regiment would never have girls among their number. Soppy lot, Anita muttered. I'm the best sword in Florida. The king himself said so. Mangloss changed his own appearance to that of a minotaur. He soon realised the mistake of his choice when his clothes ripped under the pressure of his new bulk, and he was standing all but naked in front of the others. Fortunately, he had been wearing robes over the top of his other garments, and though they too had split along the sides, he was still covered where it counted. Libnah commented. You might want to dump the staff. There aren't many minotaur mages. The elves won't allow them to learn magic. Sounds like I chose the wrong form, Mangloss commented. They won't even have elven mages in the Raiders, Libnah said. They all get transferred to the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors can do no wrong. It's not a problem, Race offered. I can store your staff until we get inside the cave. Good, Libnah said. That should work. Before you hand your staff over, though, we still need to get you 3 into the right uniforms. What do they look like? Mangloss the Minotaur asked. Libnah hesitated. They're hard to describe. They're similar to the uniforms of other regiments, but different enough that we'd almost definitely be noticed. Can you scry the guards at the mouth of the cave? Race suggested. The pit is under anti-scry shield, Mangloss reminded him. I won't be able to get through. It might be worth a try, Libnah suggested. You are a lot younger, and now they're a lot closer than you were when you last tried. We might even be inside this anti-scry shield. I suppose it can't hurt to try, Mangloss said, though he didn't sound as if he was certain. Mangloss pulled a scrying ball out from one of the pockets of what was left of his robes, and held it gently in the palm of his hand as if he was about to try and contact someone. Then he concentrated on the ball for a moment. Nothing. I'm not getting through. Libnah walked up to him. She squatted down beside him and rested her hand gently on the mage's shoulder. Try again once more, please. It'll be a waste of time, Mangloss insisted. Please, Libnah pleaded. Mangloss sighed. He stared into the ball again, and suddenly his eyes seemed to light up. I'm through. I don't believe it, but I'm through. Good, Libnah said. Mangloss studied the ball for a good couple of minutes. As he did so, he used his free hand to project an image of a standard uniform of Rave's raiders in the air in front of him. That's it, Libnah said keenly. Less than 5 minutes later, 6 figures broke from the cover of the forest. There were 3 harpies, 2 elves, and a minotaur. The uniforms of the 6 claimed that they belonged to the regiment known as Rave's raiders. As well as an elder man, a dragon man, and drakeman among the harpies, one of the elves, Jenny, also bore the insignia of a dragon man. The other, Anida, was a drake man, while the minotaur apparently bore the rank of a worm man. Strange as this may sound, Libnah said to Race as they approached the outer lines of elven soldiers, I think it'll suit our purposes better if you're male. Are you sure? Race was uncertain. I think so, Libnah replied. Any harpies among the raiders won't care that you're male, and it will help add a little much-needed variety to our group. Well, Race said, if you're sure. He changed back to his natural appearance. I hope you're right.